Several weeks had passed since Harley had been sent to Fisherstown after causing a lot of trouble for the other engines. Whilst the other engines weren't disturbed by Harley anymore, they kept a great distance away from the Caledonian saddle tank. Even though Harley hadn't caused trouble in a little while, he was still thinking of a way to get back at Edward for getting him caught. Aside from that, things ran as normal. All the trains ran on time, the passengers weren't complaining, and everyone was feeling happy. All except for one, though. One morning, Edward was in the sheds at Wellsworth waiting for his crew to arrive so he could get prepared for his first train of the day. Drew was in the sheds too. His crew was getting him ready for the day, but the little red tank engine was looking sad.
Morning, Drew. What's the matter?
I'm just thinking about May.
May?
My girlfriend. It's been 8 years since she was withdrawn from service, and I can't stop thinking about her. I miss her dreadfully.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Wait, isn't she Max's older sister?
Yes, that's right. And I'm pretty sure that he's feeling the same way too.
Before Edward could say any more, Drew's driver called out, "Come on, Drew, we have to collect some trucks to take to the docks."
I better get going. I'll see you later, Edward.
Shortly after Drew had left, Edward's crew arrived. The fireman soon stoked his fire, and Edward was soon making lots of steam. He then puffed into the siding to collect his coaches for his first train of the day. Once coupled up, he steamed out of the siding and onto the main line, heading toward the Knapford station. The big station was very busy when Edward arrived to pick up his passengers. There were big engines puffing in and out of the stations with their trains, and tank engines scampering around the yards looking for trucks to shunt. While Edward waited for his passengers to board, he was having a conversation with Henry, who was waiting for a free row back to the sheds after taking the flying kipper to the mainland. Then, they noticed Harley puffing into the station, and he blocked Edward's only way out.
You know something? I don't understand why the Fat Control would keep an old engine like yourself in service. You should have been in the scrap heap long ago.
That was a top of hat to you.
Whatever. Anyway, you should have been withdrawn long ago, and have a modern engine run your branch line instead of you.
Edward was cross, and so were the other engines. This time, Harley had gone way too far.
I might be old, but I'm still useful.
Yes, he is. He's never let Sir Top Hat down before.
Edward has proven to be a really useful engine despite his age.
And he can run circles around you.
The other engine's words didn't scare Harley, as he knew that his plan had fell right into place.
Very well, Edward. We'll see if you're still useful. How about a race? We'll take 10 trucks, load with stone, from the shunting yard to the docks, and then we'll see who gets there fastest and for longest.
With that, Harley steamed out of the station to the shunting yards to collect his train. Edward was now very nervous. He knew he was an old engine and could get tired out really easily.
I don't think I can win the race, honestly. I am an old engine, and I don't want to damage myself.
You can beat him, Edward. You've beaten Spencer in a race before, so surely you could beat Harley.
Edward knew that Henry did have a point, but he knew that the only reason why he was able to beat Spencer in the first place was because that he had dozed off while the Duke and Duchess of Boxford were taking photographs of the countryside, so he was able to slip onto the single line to get to the summer house. Despite his doubts, the other engines had his full support. They all believed in him.
Alright, I'll do it. I've outsmarted other engines before. Surely I can outsmart Harley.
After Edward was done with all of his work, he immediately began his training with the Scottish twins. They helped him by training him in the yards, and by the end of the day, Edward's training was completed. Dawn soon broke across the island of Sodor, as the engines all waited in the shunting yards for Harley. Some of the engines that could come came to see the race start. Around 8 o'clock, Harley arrived. Edward was now becoming nervous again.
I can't do this, Henry.
Yes, you can, Edward. You've proven to James Gordon and myself that despite your age, you can be a really useful engine, and you can prove that to Harley.
The tracks were cleared for both Edward and Harley. Because there was only one set of 10 stone trucks, they had to split the train up into 5 trucks. Edward was pleased that the load wouldn't be as heavy as he thought, but he was still worried all the same. Stanley puffed forward to get the race started. You may each take different tracks to get to Brendam Docks. You may only stop for coal, water, or if the signal is red. Then, Stanley blew his whistle long and loud. The race had begun. Edward and Harley steamed out of the shunting yards. The other engines watched and worried. Then they all whistled and tooted for Edward. Edward and Harley had the race of their lives. Their wheels whirred like the wind. They blasted through tunnels and charged up hills. Harley steamed smugly ahead, thinking they had the race in the bag. Edward, on the other hand, was panting wearily behind. He was close behind Harley's brake van. He was tired, but he struggled on.
As I thought. Old and useless.
I've had enough of your teasing, and I want to win.
Soon enough, Edward began to climb Gordon's Hill. His face was as red as James's paintwork, and his axle rods began to ache.
I'm almost there. I'm almost there. I can do it. I can do it. I can. I've done it.
Then there was trouble. As soon as Edward reached the top, there was a loud crack, and he soon began to find himself going even faster as he stormed down the other side of the hill.
Oh no! My brakes are broken!
Edward's heavy stone trucks pushed him on. At Marin Station, Harley was in the siding taking on water when Edward blasted past.
What the?
The guard began to apply his brakes in Edward's brake van. It worked, but only slightly, as his brake van wasn't strong enough. He still continued to race along the main line, until, just up ahead, the points were set to go onto an old overgrown line. Before Edward knew it, he swerved onto the old line and finally came to a stop.